welcome back to So There I Was podcast. I'm your host again, Travis Womack. Today's special guest is the one and only, the Veritable Veteran. Goes by Evan at home and that online. If you've seen his stuff on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, you're in for a treat. But Evan, welcome to the show, man.
I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here, man.
It's a fun challenge to be a podcast host and to you know,
Yeah.
be an influencer and you're just trying to find people to connect with. And I love the multiple platforms that we have, the opportunity as veterans to connect and laugh. And I think
Yeah.
there's a massive thing, and you're doing a fantastic job with the content you're creating. I told you the other day already that, the ID 10T forum, I was cracking up. That was great. Anybody who's ever been in a uniform can relate to a pricky
Yep.
six or exhaust gas, or
Yep.
exhaust sample. So,
Looking for
um,
the Humvee keys and sending guys out for chem light
exactly.
batteries. So.
If you've been to Fort Bragg, the keys, sec, is it Area J? I think that there's a fence now, so it's not a funny
Yeah.
joke, but actually is real keys. Um,
Yeah. Right. Lame.
lame. Who did that? Killed the
Who
good
did
joke.
that?
So, well, what I like to do, man, is kind of just get your story. That's kind of the gist of the show, is to give veterans of any branch and any time to kind of tell why they joined, what they do, and obviously you got to tell that one funny story. That's the rule. So,
Right.
so when did you join?
Yeah. So I joined back in 2006. I joined straight out of high school. I was raised in Pennsylvania, so lived up right on Lake Erie. So we had all the lake effect snow and all the crazy. We got 5 feet of snow in less than 24 hours one night. I woke up and went to bed. There's very little snow. Woke up and the entire fence had been the snow had drifted over our 6 foot fence and it was just gone. So the
Wow.
backyard was just a sheet of white. So I mean, it was wild. So stuff like that. People in the South don't ever experience it, but
No.
it was wild. But so I'm glad that we don't deal with that anymore. I don't enjoy living in an area that's just covered in snow all the time. But it was a neat experience. So grew up in Pennsylvania. I went to a small Christian school. There was 12 people in my graduating class. I was the valedictorian, so I was the smartest of 12 people. So
And the top
I
10%, technically both.
I yeah. I mean, I was winning as much as winning could happen in that small of a class. But anyway, I graduated from there. I joined the Marine Corps that summer, right after I graduated. Um, The reason I wanted to join, it was in 2006, so it was about 5 years after 9/11. 9/11 had really impacted me. I felt a very strong desire to serve my country. Um, Whether or not that was misguided, again, that's to
Up for
be
debate for another day.
decided upon. Yeah, a
Different,
debate
different,
for
different
another
show.
show. But that's why I joined. I was very patriotic. I loved my country and I really wanted to serve. Um, my buddy and I had planned on potentially joining the Air Force together to go to the Air Force Academy, and then we wanted to be pilots, and then ended up realizing that was going to take a lot of work. So we just joined the Marine Corps together instead. So we went and, joined the Dum Dum branch and I went to boot camp, and I got to go with him, which was cool. He was there, so we got to experience all that,
That's awesome.
horribleness together. So it was another bonding experience for us. So we went to boot camp, and my intent was to be infantry. I always
Hmm.
wanted to be infantry. I, when the recruiter came to my house to talk to me about what I was going to do, my mom was there and she was very, very nervous the whole time. So I said to the recruiter, like, maybe something with helicopters, wink, wink, like
Don't put that
just
down.
let's, yeah, like don't actually put me down for helicopters. I want to carry a gun and shoot stuff. I do not want to work on helicopters. Well, he took that very seriously and we went ahead and started working on an aviation support package. We get back to the recruiter's office and I was like, hey, man, I don't really want to do that. Like, I really want to be infantry. So my recruiter tells me, and again, I don't like to blame the recruiter. Recruiters do what recruiters have to do. Okay. I was told that if I wanted to be infantry, I could in boot camp when they come around to do the presidential security interviews for the
Mhm.
Yankee White program, that I could just raise my hand and they would take me, do the interview. If I passed, I would go do presidential security and then I could be infantry after that. And that is exactly what my buddy was doing. And I was like, oh, well, shoot, I'll just do that. That's fine. So that was not the case. I got to boot camp. They came around for the interviews, and I wasn't even in the room. They took all those guys and they went and did the interviews with them. And I was like, wait, I'm confused. I thought I was supposed to go or given to be given the opportunity, which I wasn't. So do I blame my recruiter for lying to me? Not necessarily. Everybody says the recruiter lied to him in some way. God had different plans. So I went into aviation ordnance. So graduate boot camp, go to MCT, graduate MCT. I go to Pensacola. I was there for a couple months. Then I went out to San Diego, out to the air base on San Diego. And then, Arizona, yeah, Camp Pendleton has an air base there. So we went there, finished my schooling up, was stationed in North Carolina at New River for the CH-53 squadron on New River. And well, there's two. I was on one of them.
Right.
So was there. While I was there, I volunteered to deploy to Iraq with the 2nd Low Altitude Air Defense Battalion, so Stinger gunners. They were a provisional grunt battalion going to TQ to do the um, site security. They were doing the
Hmm.
ECPs and the towers and all that. So they came around asking for volunteers, and of course, since I wanted to be infantry, I was like, "Sign me
Sign
up!
me
Like I'm
up.
going! Like get me out of here!" Because I
Yeah.
was at a 53 squadron. Ordnance guys, they can have a pretty cool job. They load weapons onto the plane, the helicopters and planes. They handle the rockets, missiles, machine guns, all this stuff. If you know anything about CH-53s, they do not have organic weapon systems. The only thing they have is 50 caliber machine guns they can mount in the doors and on the tail. Those are actually maintained by the crew chiefs.
Right.
So ordnance guys don't even really get to do anything with that. So the only thing I got to do ordnance wise in a 53 squadron was the countermeasures, the chaff and the flares they would have
Right.
on the back, and then the CADs they would use to jettison the fuel tanks if they had to, which are just two little shotgun shells, like really powerful shotgun shells that would basically blow open the pins that were holding the tank
Right.
on. They set
Falls
them
off.
off, pops it, and then the tank falls off. Those are the only things I got to do as ordnance. And everything else I did was I was in the tool room checking out tools all day long. They'd hand me a tag, I'd hand them a tool. They'd hand me a tag, I'd hand them a tool. They'd come back with the tool, I'd give them their tag. And it was miserable. I hated my life, hated
Oh
every
yeah.
second of it. So that's kind of where my lack of fulfillment kind of started was I was already not doing what I wanted to do. And now I was even doing something like less. I wasn't even getting to do the cool ordnance job. I was doing like the really, really lame ordnance job. So I was feeling really unfulfilled. So they come around asking for volunteers, and I'm like, me, take me, I'm going. Like, and I jetted out of there and I went to Cherry Point, North Carolina, where I started training with them, and we did our workup. And then we deployed to Iraq in 2008. Excuse me. So we go to TQ. We're there for 7 months. Nothing happens. It's a pretty quiet deployment. Ramadi was right down the road. Habaniya was right across the road. So I know those were two pretty hot spots before I'd gotten there. And even while we were there, Ramadi had some stuff going on, but none of it really came to us. The only thing we had was a couple of medevacs came through the gate. Um, we heard some stories of stuff that had happened, but it was a pretty quiet deployment. So come back. I'm still wanting to be infantry, but now I'm back at the aviation unit. I'm back in the tool room. Um, and we get deployed to Ghana in support of President Obama's trip to Ghana. So we had to
Right.
float across on an LHD, which was the USS Iwo Jima. We floated across with all the helicopters to fly his VIPs around. So I was like, cool, this could be fun. So we float across the Atlantic. And this whole time that we're doing this, like since I had gotten back, I had started training to go into recon, Marine recon, because that was
Hmm.
kind of my out I could try out for Marine recon, and if I made it, then I could
Crossover. Right.
yeah, I could lap move into that. So I was working towards that. So I'm running all the time. I'm rucking all the time. Even on the ship, I was running laps on the flat top, just in my boots and flak, and I had a pack on. I'm just running. So constantly training for that. So we do that. We get back, um, and then I was I started kind of transitioning my mindset to I was going to try out for MARSOC instead because MARSOC was kind of not beginning, but it was still sort of beginning. It wasn't fully established yet.
Right. They got
So they
renamed in what,
were,
oh 06, I think it was. Something like
I think so. Yeah, it
that.
was right when I got in. So it was kind of, it was still, it had been there for a couple of years, but it was like recon, then force recon, and force
Right.
recon got, they basically took all the force recon guys, moved them, and changed the sign from force recon to MARSOC.
Yeah.
And then they started bringing new guys in and all this other stuff. So they were still working on all that when I got in.
They basically
And
just
then,
added the sock at the end of it. I mean, it's,
yeah, right.
that way it fell under the proper J
Exactly.
alignment,
Yeah. Because I guess the Marine Corps resisted being a or having special operations for a long time because their mindset was
The
all
SEALs.
Marines or special operators kind
Yeah.
of. It was weird. I don't know. Then they had the Force Recon guys. They didn't want to do it because they wanted to be their own thing. Anyway, whatever it was, I decided I wanted to be a part of that, and I was like, all right. So I started training for that. Um, I met my wife that summer, and the only reason I was there to meet my wife and not at a MARSOC assessment and selection was I got hurt training. I got iliotibial band friction syndrome in my right leg, and I could barely walk and let alone run. So that was obviously assessment and selection was out. So everything
It's
got
a lot
pushed
of words
back.
for Marines. Sorry, I gotta call it
Yeah,
out.
right. I had to practice that in the mirror this morning. So I got I got hurt and then but thankfully it was again it was God directing me where he wanted me to go because my I met my wife that summer. Had I not been injured, I wouldn't have met my wife. Um, and we ended up getting married. We met in August and we got married in December. So I mean, it was kind of a whirlwind relationship. But we've been
Nice.
married for almost 16 years now and we've got 6 kids. So I mean, it something worked. So, so
More than something.
got yeah, right. So
Sorry.
you know, we got we got married and then I started there was a whole big thing with my reenlistment. I was trying to reenlist and lat move into the infantry. I was trying to go into recon, then it that fell through. So I was like, screw it, just put me in regular straight leg infantry. And I got into a unit. I got sent to um wow, ITB, Infantry Training Battalion, which is
Hmm.
basically the opposite of MCT, where you go to get
Right.
the actual official infantry training. Went through that as a corporal, which was awkward because it was just I'm outranking everybody, but I'm still in the same. Yeah, it was weird, but it was annoying and super frustrating. But we survived. Got to 3-9, and then we deployed in December of 2010, and then into 2011. Um, and yeah, so we deployed for 7 months, and I'm trying to. I'll probably just kind of go through the rest of my time,
Yeah,
and
that's
then
fine.
I'll
Yeah.
come back to the funniest. Some of the funniest stories happened when I was deployed, and
With
so
infantry, because we're the funniest guys.
yeah, there's a lot of wild stories.
Yeah.
So I got back, and then they immediately my wife had bought a house in North Carolina while I was deployed, so she went through that whole process by herself. So kudos to her because I came home and there was a house, and I was like, wow, okay, this is cool. I didn't have to do anything. So got home, got settled sort of, and then they came to me and they're like, "Oh, hey, by the way, you're going to recruiting duty." And I'm like, "I just bought a house. Like, are y'all serious? Like, come on." So they told me you can go to the HST, the team that selects these guys, and you can make your case for a different billet or for a different B billet. And I was like, okay. So I go to this guy and I'm like, hey, I just bought a house. Um, I would really rather stay in this area, and I can do that if y'all will give me an SOI billet and go to be an a combat instructor. And they were like, "Well, you're a sergeant. You're fresh off deployment. We need infantry guys as combat instructors because you don't have to be infantry to be a combat instructor, but you have to be infantry to be an infantry combat instructor,
Right.
if that makes sense."
Yeah,
So
totally.
for anybody listening that they're as if they're as confused as I was, don't feel bad. So I
That
was
don't
like,
make
"Can
no
I?"
sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all. But I was like, I need to stay on the East Coast and I need to be an infantry combat instructor. And I would have even taken a spot at MCT. I didn't care. Just don't move me from the East Coast.
Right.
And I got my orders back and I got everything I wanted somehow. They made me an infantry combat instructor and I got to stay on the East Coast. So again, praise God that we didn't have to move and sell our house like 6 months after buying it.
Yeah.
So went to SOI and was there for, I say I got there in 2012 and I left 2015. So it was about 3.5 years, which a B bill is, 3 years. So I was there for a little bit longer, but there was also some schools and stuff that I went
Right.
to. So I got orders to 29 Palms. So got
Oh
to go out
darn.
to the desert. Yeah, right. I really liked 29 Palms. The training was awesome. The people were cool. The scenery was amazing. The desert itself obviously sucks because it's hot.
Right. That's the rule.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, you can't, I don't make the rules. So it was hot, but I mean, I loved it out there in 29 Palms. But while I was there, um, got deployed with 2-7. We went to Al Assad in Iraq, and we were at Camp Buring. No, what's the one in Kuwait? What's the other one? There's two like big
Oh gosh,
ones.
my brain just turned off. This is yeah.
And we were in Kuwait. We were the trap team for CENTCOM. So we
Right.
were the tactical recovery of aircraft and personnel. So if a plane got shot down, we went after the pilot
Right.
and the plane, which it didn't happen, unfortunately. I mean, fortunately, no planes got shot down, but we were,
Fortunately,
it
unfortunately,
would have,
yeah.
it would have been cool, but thankfully nobody,
Right.
So, um, anyway, we did that, and that was a cool deployment. I had a really great time. There's a great unit. We had a great workup. I really love those guys. I'm still close with all of them. But while I was there in Kuwait, I decided like I was done with the military. I was coming up on 11 years, which I had just passed my 10-year mark, and I was like, I got to decide what I'm going to do because if I'm going to stay, I got to make the decision to stay. If I'm going to get out, I need to get out now because if I stay any longer, it's going to be pointless to get out.
Right.
So I was in that decision time frame, and I talked to my wife, and she was like, "Absolutely not. You're not getting out. Like we don't have insurance, we don't have a job, we don't have a place to live." And I was like, "Okay, I get that, but I don't know how much longer I can do this." And I just felt burned out. And
Yeah.
it didn't help that my command, some of the members of my chain of command were kind of, you know,
If you
just shway shway. Yeah, I mean the CEO was really good. I really liked some of the other guys, but there was a couple in there that I dealt with pretty regularly that were
yeah.
pretty awful. So decided it was time to get out. My wife ended up kind of coming around to it, and in let's see, December of 2016, my family moved to Oklahoma, which is where I live now. They went to live with her sister while I finished my contract, and then she started teaching at the school that my sister-in-law worked at. So she had a job, kids were enrolled in school, and I was basically just hanging out in California until my time ran out. That is really when things went off the rails for me mentally because
Hmm.
I had been doing just fine. I didn't really have any issues. I had been on antidepressants for a while, just dealing with just anxiety and depression. And not knowing now it was from PTSD, just related to my deployment to Afghanistan.
Hmm.
At the time, I was kind of like resistant to the idea of getting a diagnosis, and I was like, I didn't want to talk to anybody because I didn't want that. Um, so they leave, and I'm there by myself. And not only do they leave, and I'm home by myself, my command basically was like, yeah, you're an E6 and you're getting out. We don't care what you do. Like literally, I
Right.
didn't even have to call in. They were like, as long as you let us know that you're alive, we don't care. Like literally I didn't have to go to
Right.
work. I didn't have to go to PT. I didn't have to do anything. And it was a recipe for disaster for me because all I did was start drinking. And I would drink all night long. I'd wake up and start drinking in the morning. I'd drink all day long. And I basically just rotted in my house for a couple weeks, where I didn't do anything. And I started really getting scared because I was like, what am I going to do?
Right.
Where am I going to live? How am I going to provide for my family? And it it was my fault because I wasn't actively I was looking for a job. I was looking for a house. I was looking for these things, but every time things would get rough or I'd get nervous, I would just immediately turn to whatever bottle I had and start drinking it and
Right.
just basically like, I'm just going to forget my issues and, drink until I fall asleep, and then I'll wake up and do it all again tomorrow. So I had never dealt with any of my mental crap from earlier on in the military. And when the driving force of being in the military was no longer there,
Hmm.
everything just kind of fell apart. So that's when I really started struggling mentally and having a lot of issues with alcohol. And so eventually I get out in February, I go on terminal leave, and then I drive to Oklahoma and start looking for a job. And, I that's really when again, the stuff just continued to get worse mentally because I just lost all identity, all purpose, and my life was just it was falling apart. I thought it would be better because I'd be home with my kids, I'd be home with my wife, and all of that was just it meant nothing, And again, it sounds terrible to say that because it's like your wife and your kids should be your priority, but I had no sense of fulfillment in any of it. Um, and again, that's really where I was kind of at. And then in 2018, a one of the sergeant majors that I deployed with Second Lad Battalion, he was a super motivated dude, one of the most amazing people I'd ever met. Just loved the guy to death. I kind of followed his career throughout the Marine Corps, and he got pretty high. He was never sergeant major of the Marine Corps. I think he was one of the few that was being looked at one point, but he got passed over just for whatever reason.
Well, there's only one
Anyway,
position.
he ended up, yeah, right. So he ended up getting out in 2017, same time, around the same time I did, a little bit after I did. I didn't know this at the time, but I found out later. And he had been out for about 6 months, and he ended up killing himself.
Dang.
And this was in March of 2018. So it was 1 year after I got out. And I read this online, and I was like, I had already been dealing with all this crap for about a year mentally. And then I hear this, and I was like, just really torn up about it. And I went to my wife and I was just talking to her and kind of, told her what happened. And I was just talking to her about how it was making me feel. And I was like, if he was struggling and he was as strong as he seemed like he was, I can't even imagine how many other people are struggling. And, I started feeling like I wanted to talk about what I was dealing with. And that's when my wife was like, well, just start a Facebook page, and I was like, okay, nobody's
Okay.
gonna do it. No, nobody's gonna follow it, but okay.
Right.
And then, so I just started posting videos, just talking through what I was feeling and stuff that I had experienced, and basically being like, does anybody else feel this way? Because I feel like I'm the only one. And then people started being like, no, I totally feel that way too. And they're like, yeah, I felt that way, but I didn't know how to say it. And then it just kind of ballooned into this thing that, I've been blessed to be a part of, where I'm just trying to put words to other people's feelings. Now, it's either something that I've experienced or something somebody else has told me or something I've read about. And I'm just trying to put it into a visual representation that people can understand.
Hmm.
Because a lot of times I can't describe what's going on in my own head very well. So I'll see, and it's hilarious because I'll see like a meme and I'm like,
Totally get
that.
it.
That is what I'm feeling
See this
right there.
picture.
And
Yeah.
my wife's like, oh, that makes a little more sense now. So I thought if I could do that, but
Yeah.
for veterans and on a different and a more serious level, not, necessarily all the time, because I still post funny stuff and it's, I try to post things that people can relate to, whether it's funny or serious. But that was the whole reason why, was just getting people to relate to what uh, and well, to relate to what other people were experiencing, but also to understand they're not the only ones feeling that way.
Right.
Because a lot of people were saying like, or they weren't saying anything because they're like, I have to be the only one feeling this way because no one is saying a word about it.
Hmm.
And then I come along and I'm like, no, pretty sure there's a lot of people. I'm one of them. And,
Right.
and, there's a lot of us.
Well, there's
And
power
it's
in,
been,
sorry, let me cut you off.
no, no, go ahead. No, go ahead.
So there's power in like just the, a 10 to 15 second reel,
Yeah.
that someone else can be going through hell in their head,
Hmm.
and they just monotonously go to the bathroom as every man does, and scrolls, not every
Yep.
man, but vast majority of us, and but or they're at their office so they can have phones, and it's just like that moment of like, oh man, that's funny, like there's that little flashback that
Yeah.
in real time is like 10 seconds, but in their head it just fast forward plays like 7 years of their life, you
Yeah.
know, and and it prevents people from making, I believe it prevents people from making a terrible decision. Like, well, I was
Yeah.
gonna drive my car off that bridge sign on the way home, but that's a funny reel. This guy gets it, and he's trucking along, or
Yeah.
it's a which is the same thing I told you whenever I reached out for this podcast is why I have it is there's guys that are at the water fountain around other coworkers, and they're all chit-chatting about the LeBron James new King James commercial, which is hilarious, by the way. Um, I grew up in the Jordan era, so I'm a little biased, and
Right.
I saw the goat, but
Yeah.
um,
I seen it.
and but like they're all doing this, and then someone talks about like getting a new truck, as guys
Hmm.
do, and getting new wheels or lift kits or exhaust or whatever, and then
Yep.
in your head you're like, I used to drive a tank,
Yeah.
and you want to like tell this story, but like the context to that, like trying to explain the driver's seat of an Abram
Right.
to
Like
anybody who's
imagine that conversation where like
yeah,
you're standing there with there's like three guys and
yeah,
you're like, yeah, yeah, I drove a tank.
yeah,
And it was like this tight little spot. And you sit down in there and and then imagine the way they're gonna look at you.
yeah, and you're laid back,
They they may be like excited about it, but they're
right?
still gonna have like this kind of like,
You did
I
what?
don't know how to relate to that, you
Right,
know, and they're just kind of, I don't know. And I guess it depends on who you're talking to, but like when you think through that, how that would look and how that would make
oh
make
yeah,
you feel,
oh yeah,
it's like, it's like talking to, I mean, it's like anything. If you're talking to a bunch of oil field workers
right.
and they're talking about an oil derrick and they're working on this rig, and I'm over there like, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, dude. Or,
It's in the ground the whole time.
yeah, yeah. I'm so confused. But it's like, I feel like there's so much power in just being able to in community and being
Yeah,
able to relate to each other.
it is.
And once veterans leave the military, they lose that.
Yeah,
And it's unfortunate that there's not.
yeah.
And I know there's places like the VA and the VFW and the American Legion and stuff like that, which they are doing good things and they are starting to kind of grow and become more attractive to younger veterans.
But saying the guards
Um,
change over a little bit in those.
yeah, it's starting
Yeah,
to. They're working on it, and
there's
good
less
on them. I've seen.
less of the back and Nam and more of the
Yeah,
GWAD audience. Yeah,
and I feel like a lot of it used to be, let's just sit around and get drunk at
yep.
the VFW.
And
That's
yeah,
all they were, is it was a place to go get drunk and
and bingo.
occasionally
There's
play bingo.
bingo.
Yeah. It's, we'll just do both. We'll get drunk and play bingo. But it was like a lot of these younger guys don't want to do that. Or if you're like me, it's a problem and I don't want to go there, because they're serving alcohol, and
Right,
I don't want to be around that because it's a
right,
temptation to get back into something that I used for years as a
right,
negative coping mechanism. And I don't need that. I don't want that. So
right.
I don't go to, I have avoided those places intentionally because of that. Um, so I'm in a way, I'm trying to foster a community, even if it is just online, a community of like-minded people and people that have felt alone,
Hmm.
either, uh, like they felt almost abandoned. And that's
Right,
not trying to say like veterans have been abandoned by the community or anything. I don't think they have, but it can feel that way
right.
when you've been alone and you've been isolated for so long. And, it's trying to kind of break through that shell that they've built up
Hmm.
against, having community.
Yeah. Well, I look at the history of veterans in a sense. You can go all the way back to Revolutionary War, but
Yeah.
you have the shell shock of World War One.
Yeah.
And guys just sitting there stoically and they didn't know what to do. And if you've ever read anything about World War One, it's like, yeah, it makes sense. They literally just curl up in
Yeah.
the fetal position, like it's gonna
Yeah.
suck for like the next
It's
three
just,
hours, you know.
yeah. Yeah.
And
Just,
and
yep.
and like these battles are just insane. So I get it. And then you have the guys from World War II. And it's like they're deployed for like 3 years at a time.
Yeah.
Like they left, they had a wife, and they come home to a wife and that 3-year-old. Hopefully it's theirs.
Yeah.
Um,
Right. That's
but
hopefully theirs.
you know,
Exactly.
but it's just like this, like our generation. You just talked about having 4 deployments. Is that what I heard? Four,
Well, it was
four in
three
a
and a,
ship, trip.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you know, so it counts. So we'll call it
yeah,
five.
right.
The Army were, my buddy's like, I got 17 deployments. You're in the Air Force. Like they're a
Yeah.
month long each. Shut
Yeah.
up.
Did you actually
Yeah.
leave the United
You fly
States for
fuel
more than
tankers.
60 days? Yeah.
You know, you barely got a
Yep.
separation pay.
Yeah.
We talk so much trash. He just retired. And I'm
Oh, I
like,
know.
oh, but
Yeah.
but there's this difference of relation of like those guys. I'm like 3.5 years. I couldn't imagine being
Hmm.
gone 3 to 3.5 years. In
Yeah.
covering all of Europe.
Yeah.
I mean, watch Band of Brothers. I'm like, that last scene in the sandbag, the new guy's like loading the gun, cleaning, like, oh, we get some guys. He's like, would you shut up? I'm like,
Yeah.
I've made it this far. I got
Yeah.
a week left, man. Shut your mouth.
Yeah. No,
And
nope. Mm-mm.
and so I look at that, but then I think the Vietnam area and Korea obviously gets forgotten, of course. That's the rule. And then,
Yeah.
but Vietnam has this unique stigma to it
Hmm.
of, it's the first time we've really, really, really turned our backs wrongly against a
Yeah.
generation. I say we as I wasn't born yet, but, and then Desert Storm was like this like minor correction to that.
Hmm.
And then GWAT happened and 9/11, everything after. And like, there's this, honestly, I call it this overcorrection of like,
Yeah.
if you see somebody, you have to tell them thank you for the service.
Right.
You just have to. And it was cool for like '01 to maybe '05, and then it got
Right.
annoying real quick. And I use the analogy of, telling someone you love them, you can say it in the right tone that sounds like you hate them. Like, I love you. You're like, no,
Yeah. Right.
I felt that one,
Thanks. I
and it's
felt really
thank you
loved
for
in
your
that moment.
service. I have to tell you this, and it's like
Yep.
there's this like I politically have to say these things,
Right.
and then at the same time they're being told like PTSD became this defined term,
Hmm.
and so, oh, don't talk to them about what they did, don't ask them what they did,
Yeah.
and
Right.
I think I genuinely think that part shut off our whole generation of soldiers and or Marines, and just collectively at the same term. And
Right.
but the from like being able to talk because no one asked. Everyone told like don't
Yeah.
ask them, don't let them talk about it. And then Vietnam vets are like, we talked about it all the dang time, but
Yeah.
they overshared, and you're
Yeah.
like, I don't need to hear about your foot going through this thing in the ground and stakes going through your leg. That's just
Like, right.
weird and too too much, and if you read about Vietnam, it's a lot. And then you get, so today's
Yeah.
soldiers is like, well, we didn't do that. We didn't invade Normandy. And so like we have service, like not survival's guilt, but like, did I really, really, really do anything guilt? You know?
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
like one of our firefights is completely different than a firefight from Vietnam and way different than, being in Europe, but it still counts, sadly. And
Yeah.
I think there's just like we have our own struggle of credibility, and then the civilian population of today doesn't know how to ask, and so we clash on.
Hmm.
I don't know how to talk about it, and I don't know what to ask, and then there's this big gray area in between of lack of understanding. And you
Yeah.
talk about the at the water fountain being able to give context whenever you do share though. Like if I share a story about airborne operations, and someone's parachute not working or a static line snapping, which is pretty rare, but parachutes don't work all the time. You're like, oh,
Hmm.
you're falling
Yeah.
from the sky, I freak out, and like when we tell the stories amongst paratroopers, we're like, that's hilarious, you know,
Yeah.
and like we just laugh because like
Yep.
we get it, we relate,
Like, man, I
but
almost died.
right.
Haha.
And then civilians, the term that I was going to put on there was they without intentionally doing this, but they're casting a form of judgment and shame.
Yeah.
Like
Unknowingly,
you
but it's
should
still,
you shouldn't find that funny. Like you could
yeah,
have died. I'm like, that's why it's hilarious.
that's why it's
It's the
hilarious.
closer to death we get, the funnier the story is.
Right.
But the judgment of like, oh, you should probably see a psychiatrist then if you think that's kind of stuff's funny. And I'm like, but my friends think it's we
Right.
that's a there's not enough psychiatrists for all of us. Like
Yeah. Right.
there's
Hold
you
on.
know and it's like so it's this
Yep.
weird thing of like that's but you asked us to go do this. You asked us as a country to go fight this. And so like this
Yeah.
bridge of crossing over into go do war, and then you judge me for doing it. I'm very confused right
Right.
now. So,
And that's there's a lot of that where, when you get into like war crimes and things
oh
that
yeah.
people have done that were
Oh yeah.
less than ethical, we'll
Yeah.
say, like the Marine snipers that shot that guy and
Yeah.
then they ended up urinating on his body. Was that okay? No.
No.
No. Would I condone that? No.
Yeah.
However, the people that condone it,
Never put a uniform on.
99% of them have never been in that situation where this guy had killed
Right.
one of their friends
Yeah.
and they hunted him
Right.
and they killed him.
Right.
And you don't understand the flood of emotions that that's going to
Right.
bring and the rush of endorphins and
Right.
just it's almost primal,
Right. Yeah.
because it's like I bested this person and they tried to kill me and I killed them.
Right.
And if that's all and again, I'm not downplaying what they did to the
Doesn't
point of
justify
saying
the
it was
action, but
okay.
it's understandable.
No,
Yeah.
but if they could have done a lot worse,
Yeah.
and again, you know, I don't think what they did was right, but you have to understand in the context of what was going on, it could have been a lot
Yeah.
worse. And
Yeah.
I think,
Absolutely.
and unfortunately, the one guy that was involved in that, he ended up taking his own life,
Yeah.
several years later because he
Yep.
just dealt with and it could have been a lot of other stuff as well, but I know that he dragged
Played a
that
role.
guilt with him.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
he dragged that guilt with him for a long time.
Yeah. I had
But
a
it's,
Lieutenant Colonel retired Dave Grossman, who's the author of
mhm,
On Killing,
yeah,
on the show last year, and we had a very long talk about that psychosis of and psychology of what goes through that. He said the word primal. I was like, that's the same word he said,
yeah, yeah,
and like there's like in war and in the midst of a fight, like the the male warrior like instinct like
yeah,
takes over in a weird way, and some people can control it, some people lose control and stuff. But
yeah.
let's shift gears just a little bit. So you started all of that. I have no doubt is the transition naturally to starting the veritable veteran. You
Hmm.
mentioned it earlier in the 2018-19. You said
Yeah, 2018. Yep.
19 kicked it off, and the content's is hilarious. If you haven't subscribed to his show, you're missing out. It's great. There's a lot of really really good veteran content out there right now, and it's I love seeing it. I don't know how to do half that stuff either. I can do podcasting and videos, but it's great to see there's a lot of guys. There's a couple of girls too, a couple
Hmm.
of wives of all things. I forget what's
Uh-huh.
her name. What's her
Yep.
name? Got the short hair. Brain just turned off, but
Yeah, I
she
can't
she
remember.
she's hilarious. Um, and for her as a wife to get it is really really
Yeah.
really fun because there's another audience there of
Yep.
spouses,
A
predominantly
very
females,
large
you
unreached
know,
audience of
you know,
spouses.
and they're just like, my husband does some really weird stuff. He
Yeah.
leaves and he comes back and he's like 10 pounds lighter.
Right.
The wives of people like they go to ranger school. They're my favorite because they
Yeah.
come back. They come back and their husband's like literally half the person he was when they
Right.
left,
Like, where
and
did
like
you go? What did you
he
do?
won't shut up about blueberry pancakes, and um, it's
He won't stop eating everything
yeah,
either.
exactly.
He's so hungry.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
like, and then like my now ex-wife is funny. It's just like, did you just fall asleep? Seriously?
yeah.
You're just sitting there? Like, what
Yes.
happened?
What?
And she's
It's one of my many skills is the ability to fall asleep anywhere. So
that is how I can spot any veteran in any room is like, that's one right there. He just fell asleep.
yeah, he's just not. It
He's
just
standing up with no cane or support, and he's out cold.
yeah. He's just standing there. Just
Yeah.
is he
It's like,
snoring? Yep, he sure
yeah.
is.
So this isn't even a worship song. He's he's just letting it go.
He's just
So,
out.
but I think it's fun. So
Uh,
what's the I have so many questions. Let's go back to the beginning though of kind of over your career in the uniform, and it doesn't have to be combat. It can be barracks, it can be whatever, training, whatever. What's the most ridiculous shenanigans so there I was story you can give me?
I was trying to think. I've got one. There's a bunch, but I'm trying to narrow it down. So there's one where we were in Afghanistan, and this wasn't so much of a, I guess, a shenanigan as it was just it was comical after the fact. So we're in this engagement and we're getting shot at like crazy. These guys are just hammering away at us, and we have to cross this big open field. And we've got a squad suppressing these two compounds that we're getting shot at from. And I mean, there's bullets snapping and zinging everywhere. And we're running, and the mud is like, you know, it's like
Awful.
a solid, like just over ankle deep, just enough to suction your boots to the
Yeah.
ground. So we're trying to run. It's like
Yeah.
the whole time, and plus you're wearing all your gear, and
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
it's ridiculous. So there's two stories that happened on this day, and this guy, we had an APOBS, and if you don't know what an APOBS is, it's an obstacle breaching device that it's basically it has a rocket that shoots out and it has a chain of grenades that come out and it lands across the obstacle and then they
Hmm.
detonate it and it blows the obstacle up. We were using it to clear a berm because there had been IEDs in the berms the last time we had crossed it. So they were going to launch it across the berm, detonate it, and then send the engineers across to sweep it. Hopefully, it would set off the IEDs, and then,
Right.
whether it worked or not, I don't know. The APOBs worked. The engineers swept it, and there were no IEDs. So would it have actually worked? I don't know. It was a possibility. So
Still
anyway,
cool.
it was cool, right? Except so this backpack weighs like 50 pounds. The backpack carrying the grenades. So you have like the rocket in a bag, which is just like a big like I don't even know how to describe it. It's just this big metal thing with a rocket engine in the back of it. It's real
Yeah.
heavy because it has to carry the weight. So
It's
this
a big
they're
Nerf gun.
carrying the bag. Yeah, kind of, yeah. So
It's
they've got the rocket in the bag and they've got the backpack. And this dude carrying the backpack is this skinny black kid. Super nice guy. He's an engineer. Super nice guy. He's real young. He's got glasses on. And he's trying to run. He's trying to keep up. And he's trucking and trucking and trucking through the mud, right? And he trips and falls and just
just
into the ground,
face
right?
plants.
Face plants. And normally it would have been just like, oh, that looked like it hurt. He gets up and keeps going. When he hit the ground, the mud suctioned him to the ground, and he was literally drowning underneath the weight of this pack. And
Yeah.
he's literally laying there flat, and he's like this.
You
I mean,
got bubbles
he's
coming
just flat,
out.
and there's bubble. And you could hear him like, and he can't move because he can't get
Oh,
up.
that's great.
And I was like, get him. I said, get him up. We're all yelling. And I'm trying not to laugh because he looks like it. Just, if you've ever seen like the old cartoons where like the coyote just gets smashed by the rock and
Hmm.
his arms and legs are sticking out. That's kind of what he looks like. So as they pull him up, the whole ground is just like, and just suctions. He's like, and he gets, you can't, so,
Yeah.
and then the whole rest of the day, the front half of his body,
It's
like
just mud.
about this, is just like mud. And the back half of him is like mostly clean. It was hilarious. At the end of the day,
Uh,
I was like, hey,
all while being
you okay
shot at.
there?
The being shot
Yeah.
at's the
Oh,
part that
all
people
while being
forget.
shot at the whole time. That was just the icing on the cake. But that was, oh my word, that was so when they pulled him up and his whole body suctioned, I'm literally like wheezing. I'm laughing so hard. And
It's
this
the
poor kid
best.
is like having his life flash before his eyes. And like we're
Right.
in the middle of this open field, we're getting shot at, and I'm literally doubled over wheezing. I'm laughing so hard. So this happens, and then we get over to the other side of the field, and one team makes it, and the other team is coming up behind us. And I'm against this berm and I'm watching my team coming up and I'm checking over the berm and I'm, talking to my other team. And I hear this guy, he's from South Louisiana and he's got a real thick accent. And he's like, hey. And I was like, well, I look over at him. He goes, Preston got shot in the face. And I was like, what? I'm like, where? And I look over and I see Preston laying in this ditch and he's just doing the floppy fish. And I'm
Oh,
like, oh my word. That dude just got domed, like, and he's dead
right.
or dying. And he's like, Preston got shot in the face. And just the way he's screaming it, like it's comical now.
Yeah, not common
So
little
I,
moment. Yeah.
I jumped up and I ran back to where Preston was at. And again, we're still getting shot at, like
Right.
bullets are flying everywhere. So I dive in this little tiny ditch. I mean, it's not even a ditch, it's just a divot in the ground. I dive on top of him and I immediately start like blood sweeping him. I grab his head and I yank it over and I'm like feeling his face. His face is fine. I'm like, what? I'm not finding anything. I was like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong? and he's like screaming. And I grab him and I shake him. I was like, "What is wrong with you?" He points at his leg and he goes, "My leg cramped up." And I was like, I sat there for a minute and I had him by his vest and I was like, I picked him up and I was like, I just kind of threw him on the ground. And I stood up and I was like, "Preston, I hate you." Like as I'm walking away, these bullets are flying. I literally just walked away like that. I was just like, I
I don't
literally
care
just stood
anymore.
there and I was like right towards those compounds. And I didn't even run. I was so tired at this point that I just walked. I mean, there's bullets literally snapping, when they're close, they snap and somebody was definitely shooting directly at me because I was
Right.
just walking so belligerently through
It's
this
like snap,
field.
snap, 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 snap.
It was like snap, snap, snap. And I was just like, "Hmm." And I just walked over and I got down behind my berm and I sat down and I was like, and I sat there and watched Preston like laying in this field and I was like, I hope you get shot now. I was so mad. But the way he rolled over and was like, "My leg cramped up." I was like, "Bro,
You-
your
You're sitting,
cramp is about to be the least of your worries."
you're sitting down protesting like my 6-year-old does when she just want to go to bed. No,
No.
I'm not doing it.
I went back over and I sat down. I was like, "I hope
Brush
you get
your
shot now."
eyes. I want a popsicle and I'm not brushing my hair.
Yeah, no, I'm done. Oh my word. And then
Oh, that's
later on
great.
I found out that he had drank a Monster energy drink
Of course.
before the op. And I was like, "Are you stupid?"
Yeah,
Like it's literally we're in Afghanistan. It's like
yeah,
June, right? Or May or June. It's super hot.
yeah.
And we're on an opera. It's not like we're just hanging out because we drank them at the PB all the time, just
Right.
to stay awake on watch, whatever. I was like, "Dude, if I ever see you drink a Monster before an op, I'm gonna make you eat the can." Like
Yeah.
I was so mad. I couldn't, yeah, but
Oh,
that was the way, but looking back on the way the LeBron, the guy that was yelling,
yeah.
he's like, "Preston got shot in the
Five.
face." And I was like, "What are you saying?" And he's like, "In the face." And I look and there's Preston on the ground, doing the floppy fish. And I was like,
I think
"Oh
I
my
just found my next
Lord."
podcast guest. I need that guy on the show just for the accident alone.
Oh my word. Yeah. He
That's
was
great.
he'd be fun. He'd be a riot. That guy's a goober. He's funny.
The
But yeah, there was
rev-
several other, I mean, just in the middle of getting shot at, you see the most random hilarious things and people do the dumbest stuff when
I
bullets are
always talk about
flying.
that, like that scene from the Saving Private Ryan, the scene where like they're on the beach and Tom Hanks is like getting kind of like
Yeah.
dizzy delusional. Everything goes in slow motion and the sound stops, and you have
Yeah.
like these distinct, like how they film that. I was like, this is the most accurate thing ever because it's control chaos, more chaos than control. Everything's going on, but for every single person in his character was like these specific everything slowed down snapshots of the guy
Hmm.
screaming and crying behind the barrier, the whatever those X
Yeah.
things are called, and then the guy looking for his arm like it's a Tuesday, you know,
Yeah. He's
and
like, "Oh, there it is."
that's not
Picks it
mine,
up, like
you know.
puts it in his pocket,
That's
like,
the
"Eh."
but like it was very obvious as a vet of what they're trying to portray of like
Hmm.
he'll remember those two snapshots of the
Yep.
invasion more than anything else from that fight. For
Yep.
the rest of his life, he'll remember that and or the guy that gets shot in the head right next to him later on. But
Yep.
it's just
Yeah.
and it's so accurate because in the midst of chaos, all the radio yelling,
Yep.
the shooting, the number of bullets it probably was more like 30, but in reality, you're like, I changed the mags 45 times, because like
Yeah.
your brain can't like really recall it all, but it remembers
Yep.
got shot in the face, and
Yeah.
like I remember that,
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
I don't even know what direction I was even
Uh,
shooting, but
I know.
it's so funny because it's so true in those moments of chaos. There's like these uh just
These snippets of clarity,
weird snippets. You're like, why do I remember
Yep.
that? I can't remember my phone.
Yeah.
So,
There
but
was there was a that same day our battalion commander he was from South Texas or so. He had a real thick Southern accent.
yeah.
And he came up. I was over. I had to. I left my squad here. I ran over here to talk to my platoon commander, and then I was running back. And I was at the corner of this building, and I took a break, and I was listening to the radio because another squad was doing something, and I was like listening for a second, and I feel this tap on my shoulder, and I was like, "What?" And I like look up, and my battalion commander's standing over me. He goes, "What you about to do, son?"
Got killed some
And I was
terrorist.
like, um, "I'm gonna go over there to my squad, sir." And he's like, all right, son, and like pats me on the head, and I was like, this is so weird. I was like, I'm gonna
They
go.
have jalapeno cheese here.
I was like, it was so he's what you about to do, son? And I was like, I'm gonna go over there.
They
So
have the purple Skittles,
yeah,
not just the rainbow.
yeah, yeah. Okay. I was like, I'm out of here.
Oh, I love it, man.
Uh,
We could do this all day.
oh, I
Um,
know.
but I'd like to wrap it up here a little bit. But
Yeah,
we if you're the joy of this show for me is getting someone out there to tell their story, as in depth and front to back as they want. Some have been 2 minutes, and it's like talking to a wall, and some have
yeah,
get a little more in depth, and I love it because as you walk that story and walk that timeline, if it's 1 year of the service and you got hurt, or if it's a full 20 or anything in between, like
yeah,
all those memories start to play back.
yep,
And of the good times, bad times, half and half. Just it all
yep,
depends. But there's healing in that. I think for
yes.
and some people it can be a dark road. I
Hmm.
know depending upon your experiences, as what's the old slogan on box, experiences may differ, may vary,
Yeah,
but but there's still like the ability to recall it
yeah,
and then kind of and say it out loud. And there's
yes,
and I think there's so I enjoy that, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share your story and and be vulnerable about it, and and honest, because you're not alone by any means, especially when it involves alcohol and veterans. I mean,
yeah,
I was in the 82nd, and the AA does officially stands for All American, but unofficially it's Alcohol Airborne,
yeah,
or Alcohol Anonymous, or pick
yep,
anything that involves alcohol. And
yeah,
there's a great article from like I think it's '95 on Time Magazine, said that
hmm,
they're the most physically fit alcoholics that they've ever seen. So,
yes.
um,
It's wild. It's wild how well the military can function with the amount of alcohol they
oh yeah,
consume.
it's
It's unbelievable.
yeah.
It's wild.
And so I that part of it, I think there's that speaks. I didn't drink alcohol until I was 26, which is weird. And I probably had total of all alcohols less than a gallon my entire life. One, I just don't like the smell of it, but I'm weird.
Yeah.
I'm like the weirdest paratrooper ever. They're like, you don't what? Like
Right.
everywhere I went, they're like, how did you even sign up? Like, that's not even
Yeah.
is that
I
part
thought
of one
that
of the
was I
boxes.
thought that was a requirement. Like you
Yeah,
had to prove you were an
yeah.
alcoholic before you
So
could join.
but it's just I'm a weird breed in that regard for sure. But thanks again for taking the time to be on the show. And again, if you haven't subscribed to the Variable Veteran you're on LinkedIn, I'm not sorry, you're on Instagram, Facebook,
Yep.
TikTok,
TikTok
uh,
and YouTube. Yeah.
and YouTube. There we go. So
Yep.
give it a shot and have a good laugh. And if you've worn a uniform, you'll relate within 2 or 3 reels. I promise you. And if you haven't listened, if you haven't subscribed to my show, so there I was again. It's on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. By all means, sign up and give it a listen. If you want to be a guest, you can go to my website, it's womacc3.com, and sign up, and we'll make it happen. But thanks again, Evan, for being on the show, and we'll talk to you next time.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Have a good one.